Hello and welcome to my channel. I'm going to talk about the Justice card today. I think maybe my Kate Bush song for this card isn't an obvious choice. I'll be interested to see what you think, but I'll try and explain my reasoning behind choosing that particular song. Right, so we'll start with the Pointer Tarot, which is a lovely colourful deck, if you don't know it. And it's got quite a traditional sort of depiction of the Justice card. So I wanted to talk about that first. Now, my view of justice is definitely coloured by the fact that I trained to be a lawyer. Didn't practice law, but I did do 6 years of training. And I didn't enjoy it. And I think that is kind of a little bit what's coloured my view of justice. And I think we can be very idealistic about justice, but we're not in a fair world, and we definitely don't have a fair justice system. You know, like lots of cases get settled out of court anyway. There's a lot of compromise involved, and some people can't even take things to court because they can't afford to. They can't afford the lawyers to get the justice. So I think, without wanting to sound too negative about it, I think we maybe do have to be realistic that true justice is probably going to be impossible because we are in an unfair society, an unfair world. Now, I'm going to counteract that with this next World Tarot, because I don't want it to suggest that we shouldn't ever fight for things or, you know, fight for what's right. But what I prefer, I think, about this card to this one, so it's quite small, I think is that, you know, they're on a protest or some sort of march. It's not in the courtroom. And I personally feel this is a far more empowering card because they're taking matters into their own hands rather than waiting from this decision from this kind of God or this very flawed legal system. I also really like the Thoth here because I really like how Crowley calls it adjustment. Adjustment to me suggests more like a pilot flying a plane and making the small day-to-day decisions. And every day we make small decisions, often based on like kind of power. For example, just even shopping is like that, isn't it? And there's an element of justice in all those tiny little decisions. And I think I've started to understand this card more now. I think of the Libra kind of element to it. I know lots of Librans, and you can't really rant. You can't really have a rant to a Libran because they will always see the other person's point of view. And I think that's what the justice is. It is about seeing, being open-minded enough to see where the other person is coming from. So my Kate Bush song is Between a Man and a Woman. Kate Bush says that this song was inspired by Godfather, which is a film I haven't seen. And it was a moment in the film where one of the characters says about a couple, you know, leave it alone, they're arguing. He says, leave it alone, it's between a man and woman, you know, don't meddle, don't get involved. And I suspect something personal was happening in Kate Bush's life at the moment, at that time, that made it resonate with her. This photo is from the director's cut. Between a Man and Woman didn't make the director's cut, interestingly enough. And I've heard Kate Bush be a little bit dismissive of the song, like it's not one of her favourites, but I actually really like Between a Man and a Woman. I think it's a great song. Anyway, what I liked about this photo is the scissors remind me a little bit of the sword of justice. But with a director or like any creative process, like editing or whatever, you're making those small little cuts, those small little adjustments, if you like, to benefit the whole. And I was also thinking about how for writing, my favourite part of writing often is that editing process, because it can be quite emotional actually doing the first drafts or whatever, and you never know if it's going to work or what's going to happen. But the editing, you take a step back, you feel more objective. There's this sort of clarity that you've got, which can feel, what's the word? That clarity kind of, it feels very productive and positive and healing, if you like. You know, it's good sometimes to step out, especially when we've had a really emotional time, to be able to step back and see the big picture. I really like these lyrics as well. Since making this card, I've kind of often thought about these lyrics, and I'm sure there's some situations where these aren't helpful, where there's, a clear wrong. But often for me, and I know that I'm someone that maybe who rushes to judgments or maybe sometimes fails to see the other person's point of view. This is a useful reminder for me, and of course this card is intended for me, so I suppose I'm sort of creating cards where I know my weaknesses are. So, but the truth lies somewhere in the middle, I think, is a useful reminder for me when I feel indignant. Oh, well, so what if I took the middle view? If I took the long view, if I step back, oh yeah, I can maybe see where the other person's coming from a bit better. The poppies are just like a nod to, like Peace and Remembrance Day, and the fact that maybe it's when small injustices, this day-to-day injustice and conflict build up that we then see on a world stage all that kind of violence and wars and things. But almost to think of them as linked, how we treat each other day to day is linked to what the awful things that kind of happen. That it's about, I suppose, taking responsibility again with what I said, how we treat people. Anyway, that is my view on the justice. Look forward to hearing what you think. Kate Bush herself has said she's not a particularly political person, and I think for this card that's made it quite hard to actually choose a song for the justice. And I think maybe some other artists there would have been more of a choice. Anyway, so I'll be interested if you can think of another song that would have fitted this. Anyway, thank you so much for watching, and look forward to any comments you have. Thank you. Bye-bye.